Welcome to Shifting from Grudge to Grit, Grace, and Gratitude. And I am pleased to, it, I went bloop there. I'm pleased to have Elizabeth all the way from Pennsylvania here today. And welcome again, Jamila, in your very calm state, as we say. And I'm looking forward to today's conversation. It is quite a provocative one, but one that is promising to bring lots of lessons. And equally, with the intention that Elizabeth said to me a few moments ago, to accelerate the lessons for others to not make the same mistake. I'm going to hand over to the two of you to just say hi, and then I'll introduce the buyer afterwards.
Hi, and welcome everybody to our podcast this Friday afternoon. Yes, Anissa, I'm in a very relaxed state today and I'm taking full advantage of it. It won't be for too long. So I'm enjoying it and savoring it while I can. We're excited to have you all back today to join us on our podcast. And we have an exciting guest with a riveting topic. So, Elizabeth, I'll leave you to introduce yourself and then we'll hear from Anissa with your impressive bio.
Thank you so much, Anissa and Jamila, for having me on today. And yes, I have sort of taken this hero's journey, as you say, and I have two moments that intersected perfectly later on in my life. And I am so thrilled to be able to use my lessons that I've learned, my life experiences to be able to help others. And now I am a life coach who helps women and men become emotionally bulletproof after
Mm,
narcissistic abuse.
wonderful. I mean, just the caption alone. So, for anyone that's out there that's been targeted by a narcissist or is recovering from this sort of narcissistic behaviors, or have even been the perpetrator and has healed from that, we invite you to join us in this on this journey today. Um, a survivor of decades of narcissistic abuse. That's Elizabeth, our esteemed guest here today. But she turned her pain into purpose and now helps others become, as she says, emotionally bulletproof. Oh, that's interesting. So, what we're going to try and discuss today, but we'll stay in the flow state, how to identify narcissists and their manipulation tactics, the emotional traps that keep you stuck, how to protect yourself and rebuild your identity, how to heal, manifest, and create the life you actually want. So, if you've either survived toxic love, gaslighting, or emotional manipulation, stay with us. You're not alone and you can rise. A little bit about Elizabeth. She helps women and men. Okay, we've said that. Her journey began with a relationship with an overt narcissist that spanned from age 16 to 32, including 8 years of marriage that left her a shell of her former self. I got goosebumps reading that. After that, she found herself in another painful relationship with a covert narcissist that further fractured her heart and spirit. Professionally, she spent 30 years in corporate IT. Interesting. I thought you complimented me on my IT skills. I want to know more. Until her job was offshored while she was on vacation. My gosh. An unexpected moment that became the gift of liberation. From helping seniors and overwhelmed moms to becoming a life coach, she has transformed her pain into purpose. She empowers others to heal, rebuild their identity, and manifest the life they desire. She believes that we all have the power to become the vibrational match for our dreams through belief, action, and healing. Transformation is not just possible, it's inevitable. It's beautiful. Over to you, and please tell us wherever you want to start in this journey, whether it was middle, beginning, or even the end. Over to you, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you. So the two moments that are the moments that changed the trajectory of my life that call to adventure. I love that. I didn't think of it at the time as a call to adventure, but I appreciate it for what it is now. And leaving the narcissist was definitely um, a moment that changed everything. Um, I did not have a choice. I did have a choice, of course. It was my choice to leave. But what I mean by that is I felt like I was dying in that relationship, and my soul was saying, not one more day. And so it was my choice to leave, but it was something bigger, something something in me that was speaking for me and pushing me to do the thing that I had to do. And the second call to adventure and the moment that changed everything is when I lost my corporate IT job after 30 years. And interestingly enough, both of those moments in my life would intersect and converge beautifully years and years later, where it all made sense.
Jamila, over to you.
Sure, Anissa, you talk about goosebumps. I don't think there's anyone out there, our listeners or anybody just generally from the people that we know, the communities around us, with which this doesn't strike a note. I'm listening to you, Elizabeth, and I'm thinking back to my experiences. And it's something that I think that every one of us will experience at some point in our lives. So it's absolutely amazing that you have taken your experience, your painful experience, and have decided to now use that to empower others, to educate others, so that they may not follow in the same footsteps or make those same mistakes. You are actually saving people decades of time in their life to be able to um, reroute themselves, to take a different path, to a more empowered being that they are. Um, Anissa, I know you've gone through this as well. I know you've gone through the similar experience also of losing, your corporate um, job, and having these two happen at the same time in your life is like a double whammy, right? Because one, having to experience one is hard enough, it's tough enough, but to have this happen to you while making such a huge milestone shift of not having that security of a job. My goodness, I mean, Anissa, maybe you can share with us also just about how you navigated through that and what were the similar experiences that you encountered that Elizabeth would have as well.
So Elizabeth, I think you got to hear about the marriage aspects but as I said to her, I hate this label narcissist and narcissistic because all of us have those traits, no matter who we are. Yes, we may not be on the spectrum of having the disorder. And so for me, it was very difficult to even know that this was narcissism only until I went to see a therapist close to the decision of consciously uncoupling that, that was what it was called as. But the catalyst was really being laid off from work, Elizabeth, also in a very not so fair process in terms of the reapplying for our positions and the restructure that happened because the company had their own agenda. But yet, that didn't pain me in any way. I was celebrating the gift of a pause in order to revisit what I wanted to do with my life, only to discover that my partner at the time was expecting me to step up to the plate again, go and find new opportunities, and continue the momentum of being the primary breadwinner of the family. And let's face it, it's generally empaths that are connected to narcissist, and I feel very uncomfortable saying it, as you can see. But when we get together in that bond, it is a trauma bond, one, but it's also solving what you wanted in that relationship in that moment in time. And so the relationship aspects, and I want to ask you the same thing, Elizabeth. What I discovered that the codependency in my spousal relationship
Yeah.
was also in every other relationship, and I was the co-creator
Yes.
of how everything unfolded in every relationship. So the gift, as you say, and the liberation is having that mirror reflect back my own shadow sides
Yeah.
and unacknowledged parts of myself, and how I was self-sacrificing and
Yeah.
sabotaging in every other aspect of my relationships and every other system that I was in. So how did you discover the gifts, Elizabeth, in all of these intersected difficult storms that you had to overcome?
Oh, absolutely. I was able to see in retrospect how my programming, how I was brought up, the beliefs that were instilled in me when I was little, what my parents, always thought. Of course, they became my beliefs as well. But when I lost my job, I was, it seems to me like I was put on a crash course of personal development that was unbelievable to me. I did not know what personal development was until my mid 50s. I didn't know it was a thing. I was very unconscious, very unaware, just working in my default mode and not knowing any different. But I started to read books and take courses and find out these terms that you just mentioned about shadows and all these other things. And I realized how much healing and inner work I needed to do in order to release everything that I was holding on to. For 30 years, I held on to resentment and hatred and unforgiveness because I thought if I ever let that go, I will forget what I went through and then it will happen again. And I know now that that's not how it works, but it was almost a self-righteous, I have to hold on to this sort of feeling that I had. And so doing this inner work and being able to heal and to see these patterns in my life, unbelievable codependence. That's me. That was me. Wanting to be the people pleaser and the fixer of the family and of every situation, and people coming to me to fix things and for advice and all the time. And being that perfectionist, everything had to be just so, and striving and striving and striving for things to be that way, and putting an unbelievable pressure and unbelievable weight on my shoulders to be this person. And even the weight of unforgiveness, until I released it, I had no idea just how heavy it was on me. And I'm so glad now that I was able to take that time to work on myself and to see things for how they are, and to, just live my best life and not worry about others. That's been huge for me because I have always cared deeply about what people thought about me. And I wanted to be seen as like in the best light, right? But that striving for all those kinds of things was really only hurting me, because I lost myself in all of the people pleasing. And it's been a real challenge and a really beautiful thing for me to come to a point where I prioritize myself and my needs, and I ask for what I need, and I am not waiting for somebody else to make me happy. They can't, only I can. So all these different types of realizations have been, I mean, I don't recognize the person I was at all. And it's been 10 years since I lost my job, but it's been an unbelievable decade, the best decade of my life. It's brought me back to my faith. It's brought me back to remembering who I am. It's brought me back to finding my passion and purpose in life, and to we talked about the word authentic and genuine, and being as authentic and genuine as I have ever been, living my own truth and my own life, and not somebody else's idea of how I should live my life or how I should do things. That it's been quite a journey for a people pleaser.
Yeah, I think we can both relate to that. The thing is that once you're in a relationship with a narcissist and you eventually get out of it, I've spoken to a lot of women and I've been guilty of this too. But I've fallen, no matter, like I've done a lot of work on myself. I've done a lot of self-reflection. I've worked on my self-esteem and confidence and self-love. And then, you meet someone and you can just like that fall back into that toxic pattern of being attracted to yet another narcissist. What do you think, or what can you advise people out there, including Anissa and myself, to not fall into that trap again? To
Oh
be
my gosh,
the
Jamila.
tools that we can, administer and adhere to help us not go down that toxic path again.
Oh
Yeah,
my God, I'm loving this question. I don't know about you, Elizabeth, but you on fire with that question because it's apt. It's apt.
absolutely. It's always going to be top of mind for somebody who's been through it, because absolutely you don't want to go through that again. And either do I. I already went through back-to-back narcissists, and I also I closed my heart for a very long time
Yes,
because of
that's what I want you to just, touch on particularly, because when you've gone through it and you've gone through it again, your initial self-protection mode kicks in, right? And
yes,
as a
yes,
result, you isolate yourself, you cut everybody out because of that one or two bad experiences.
yeah.
So please do speak to us about that, where we don't do this and we don't deprive ourselves of the good people that are out there as well.
100%. And so where everything must start, I think, is knowing yourself. So Socrates said, to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom. Everything has to start with you. If you know your values, your needs, your non-negotiables, what you will and will not tolerate, these are essential things for you to know about yourself. Because if you don't know yourself, see, the narcissist makes it their job to get to know you better than you do. And then they use what they find out against you. And so if you know yourself better than anyone, nobody can manipulate you, and you will be able to see through their nonsense. And so knowing yourself is huge. When you do go into a new relationship, take things slowly. A narcissist is going to want to rush. They love speed, but it takes time to get to know someone. So take it. And that's the most fun part of the relationship anyway. Why would you want to rush through the getting to know you phase? And so something else is when you are meeting people and getting to know somebody, do not cancel your plans just because they asked you out. Do not clear your schedule to comply with theirs. You have to keep your individuality and always continue to do the things that you love. See the people that you care about. Invest in yourself. In, engage in your hobbies. Whatever it is that you love to do, that you're pouring into yourself, that gives you what you need, you must continue to do that, because a narcissist will isolate you. They will want to start to
Yeah.
infringe on all the things that you're doing that take you away from being with them. And that's playing into their hand. You each are individuals, healthy and whole, and you then come into a relationship because you want to be with each other, not because you need each other. And so knowing what a healthy love and a healthy relationship looks like is going to be super important. Also, you have to have boundaries. Healthy boundaries are your protection, and they are there for you. And so everyone has healthy boundaries, and the narcissist will infringe and push on your boundaries. It's what they do. They're testing you to see how much they can get away with. But you need to have healthy boundaries around you. They are your best friend. And follow through on consequences. If the boundary is, if you raise your voice, I'm going to leave the room, then you follow through. And if they raise their voice, you leave the room. So you just follow through. And also, don't be afraid to cut ties. So if you're with a person, you're getting to know them, but you're noticing they're not honoring your boundaries, they're making you feel bad about yourself in any way. If you are constantly confused about the relationship, these are not good signs. And it's okay to cut ties immediately, and you don't need to explain yourself or justify walking away from someone who just doesn't respect you. Also, you want to focus on actions, not their words, because a narcissist makes big promises, but they don't follow through. You want to trust your gut when you're getting to know somebody. If something feels off, listen to your intuition. And you want to learn to say no without guilt. You have every right to say no without guilt. And a narcissist, again, they will test your ability to put yourself first. So you always want to prioritize yourself and your needs. I'm not saying this from a selfish point of view, that it's always about me. Not that. There's a difference between being an individual and having healthy, schedules and desires and things that you love to do, and a life of your own, which you are entitled to, and hopefully they have one as well. And so, you don't have to lose. In a toxic relationship, they have to win, which means you lose. But in a healthy relationship, you both win. You figure it out.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of respect and resolution and desire to figure it out so that you're both good with whatever the situation is. So also knowing what healthy love looks like and feels like will help you figure out if this feels good or if it doesn't. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think also I just want to, like when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, they break you down to such a base place that you have absolutely no confidence. And like you said, they isolate you. So they keep you from your friends, they keep you from your family because you're supposed to prioritize them. And that's a show of you taking the relationship seriously. Now, I've been through that. I've isolated myself. I've not gone out with my friends or prioritized them. Um, Actually, it's not about prioritizing anyone. I didn't prioritize myself. Now I am able to see it because I've gone through it, not just once, but I've gone through it twice. So I can see the signs as a support structure of someone who's in a narcissistic relationship, and being able to see all the signs of the love bombing, breaking down the confidence, and everything else that comes with it. But especially if you have a friend who's in the relationship and it's really new, but you can spot the love bombing, you can spot how they place you up on a pedestal and whatnot. And most times the person who's being love bombed falls,
Yes.
you know, head over heels. There's no reason anymore because you're so in love, so supposedly in love. As a friend on the side, how would you suggest that you manage this situation that your friend is going through so that they may not go through all of the despair and the heartbreak and the pain
Yeah.
that's associated with it? Because it's very difficult, because sometimes it gets misunderstood as you being jealous, but you
Yeah.
can clearly see this is what this person is going through. How do I then show up as a friend to be able to hold her hand and take her through this? And I say her, but you know what? You could have a guy friend as well, because
Mm.
men and women are both, um, you know, really can be narcissists or are narcissists. So, how would you go about doing that if you can see that this is what is ahead for your friend?
Yeah.
Great question, Jamila.
Yeah. It totally is. And the only thing that comes to mind is that to say with love, I, because I have been through it myself, I can see some things that maybe you can't see. And here is what I see. And I just want you to proceed with caution, maybe slow down. And I don't want you to have to go through what I did. And so to say it with love, to even send them videos of people who are in this space. There's a lot of free resources out there, so that they can start to maybe get some education about it and start to see things on their own. As you said, it's very intoxicating, and it's, who doesn't want to be showered with affection and love? And so it might be very, they might be blinded to what you're trying to say. But to say it, and to try to open their eyes and to just continue to be a support system to them is really all you can do. If they don't receive it well, you can't, there's nothing you can do with that. But hopefully you're planting a seed, and hopefully they're open enough to just take a look at these videos that I found. This seems a lot like what I'm seeing you go through right now, and try to educate them with your own experience, or with these videos. But just stay in their orbit, because as we've already mentioned, the narcissist will isolate, and we want to be there in case they need us, and love them through it, and letting them know I'm always going to be here for you, if you ever need me. Yeah.
Sure, this stuff is so intense. It's hitting buttons that I thought was gone. So I can relate to everything that you've said, Elizabeth, because my bubbly, extroverted personality as a young 20-year-old who met my ex-spouse became very much around only living in a bubble with my ex and my kids, and yeah, I changed. I
Yeah.
completely changed who I was.
Yes.
But I want to come back to your story and say how easy it is to get lost in this, because the part that I resonated with the most is when your belief system is I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I don't belong. And your examples, I'm just going back to your story and the things that you've mentioned. Your example of what healthy love looks like wasn't even available to you within the caregiver or in the home environments that you were. It is only natural that you are going to operate. And I am a recovering people pleaser. I say recovering because, like Jamila has said, sometimes we gravitate back to those, even in our empowered state, even after having done all the work, even after serving in the capacity of coach. It doesn't matter. You are human, and these are part of your pathologies.
Yeah.
It has been pathologized within you, it has a cell memory. So there will be people coming into your life. And so Jamila's right in saying, hey, I'm seeing this. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Because when you're searching for love, belonging, acceptance, validation, or if you're seeking to be witnessed in the things that are unmet for you, or pain, or trauma, or the wound, that love bombing is just the most beautiful thing to experience,
Yeah.
because finally someone sees me.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, someone understands me. And it's so, I love the word. I was intoxicated by that, because coming from a broken home, no, not living with my parents and not knowing my dad, and yeah, hey, this is somebody that I can build a life with, because this is what love is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
It is very difficult to actually know or see. So you've given us so much gems. But I also want to come back to Jamila's question around seeing this. It's such a sensitive matter, because it can be perceived as you're jealous that I've got a relationship and this person loves me, and. And so you've given some beautiful gems there too, to say, just hold the person in reverence,
Yeah.
be gentle, and but it's not easy, because we are so blind in those moments, and we are so hungry to receive whatever we're getting. Now, when you finally get to the heal state, Elizabeth, what does that look like when you no longer in judgment or grudge or resentment to the perpetrator?
Well, it's taken me about 30 years to get to this point, but I have peace in my life. I have absolute peace. Things are not perfect, and it's not about perfect anymore. But I am content. I am happy. I have purpose and passion in my life, and I am calling the shots for my life. I am not living up to anybody else's standards. I am not living up to anybody else's expectations. I have plenty of people around me who do not believe in what I am doing. They're not supportive about the path that I have chosen. They think I have fallen so far from where I was, but they only see the monetary aspect of what I have lost. They don't see what I have gained. I have gained just so much. I can't even articulate how much I've gained. It's everything. I have come home to myself in a way that I didn't know was possible. I I am living my own life and making my own decisions, for better or for worse, and taking baby steps every day um, in service of my dreams. And so it's funny because they look at me and they say, "You've changed." Like so they don't know they don't know what else to say about it, but they look at me and like, "You're different." And that is the highest compliment that I can receive, because without me even saying anything, and they don't know what I'm doing because I move in silence. I must move in silence. I do not put my life on the altar of someone else's opinions. And so I don't share. I'm very careful about who I share what I'm doing, who I share with, because there are a lot of people who say, well, for all the money that you've spent on this coaching, you could have had an MBA. Okay, that's and in their minds, I would be safer that way. I would be more secure that way, and that's what they want from me. They want me to be okay, but that is not my calling in life, and they don't understand my hero's journey. They don't understand my quest. They don't understand how hard it has been and how much I have had to fight to get to where I am. So everything that we do, it doesn't happen in an instant. It's earned. And so they don't see that part. They just want me to be safe. So my life now is one of peace. And that is my favorite word. And it's what I always wanted because it's what I never had.
Elizabeth, wow, that resonates so deeply as well. What I want to touch on now is that when we go through these relationships, and often it's marriages and you're in it for many, many years, first of all, you don't have the awareness or the understanding that what you are experiencing is actually a narcissist, because we don't have that information. Um, we're just not knowledgeable about it. We just feel that the person is difficult or the person is moody or whatever the case may be, and we tend to accept it. As a result, you in your marriage, you having your children, your children are experiencing this. And it takes an amount of bravery and
Yeah.
courage when you do finally understand, maybe not even completely understand or fully understand, but you realize that you need to get out of this because it's not a healthy relationship. Can you give us some advice on making that decision? Because, like you say, a lot of people have different expectations of you. A lot of people will feel that you've got to stay in the relationship. You're either bringing shame to the family or the community, or whatever the case may be, that divorce is a taboo. But advise us from a a mom's or a dad's perspective, what your responsibility is, firstly to yourself as an individual, but also what your responsibility to your children is,
Yeah.
because you're bringing them up in a toxic environment, and it is unacceptable to label that as something that's normal. So maybe you can share a little bit with that. And Anisa, I know that there's a couple of my friends who are coming on. Yumna Mohammed, I'm making particular mention to you because she also has some very valuable experiences that she may share. So Yumna, I urge you to please comment and share with us, because this is what our podcast is all about. It's not just about us being here and sharing our particular stories, but just getting the the many stories from everyone else to be able to share, so that other people can be helped with this, be assisted, become aware of it. So I do encourage and urge all of you who are on, please do comment on Instagram, on LinkedIn, um, and share with us your experiences and maybe what helped you to come out of these um, terrible experiences. Over to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. It all comes down to you have to choose yourself. We are not here to be a doormat for somebody else. We're not here to be disrespected by other people. We're not here to be used and abused by others. That's not why we're here. That's if you're in a marriage or in a relationship, that's not what a relationship is about. It's and you don't have to put up with any of that. And I put up with it for a very long time for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. I signed up for better for worse. I made marriage vows, and I thought, well, I guess this is it. This is the kind of relationship my parents had, where my mother was very subservient to my father. He made all the decisions. I guess this is what marriage looks like. And I pour everything into my family because that's what my mom did. She didn't have any identity of her own. She was there as a support for the family, but mostly for my father. But that's not what we're here for. And so with me, it came to a point where I had to choose myself, and I had to choose myself over and over and over again. It felt very strange to take that step. But at the same time, where I was in the relationship, I didn't have a choice to stay. It was a matter of pure survival. And so if you're at a point where you're in pure survival mode all the time, that is not how we're supposed to live. If you're at a point where you don't have an identity of your own and everything is for everybody else, and you are always giving and never getting, if you are that doormat, if you have the right and the permission to say, this is not the life that I signed up for. This is not what I want. And it's okay to choose yourself as many times as you need and to make preparations to leave. And you owe that to yourself, but also your children are being affected by what they see. So many people say, I don't want a divorce because of the kids. I don't want them to come from a broken home and these kinds of things. I understand that very much. But at the same time, you're modeling for your children to put up with abuse. You're modeling for your children that you don't stand up for yourself. You're modeling for your children that all these wrong behaviors are okay. And you're setting them up for a difficult life, because if this is what they know and they think this is normal, then they will inevitably find a partner who feels familiar to what they know. And someone who is not in their best interest. And so please don't stay together in a toxic relationship for the children. The children probably want you to leave as much as you want to leave.
I want to come in there, Elizabeth, because you're spot on there. When I ask my kids now, because I still have a very good relationship with their dad, and I use the word conscious uncoupling because I was out of my grudge state and I could see he could not give me more than what I was expecting from him. So the resentment is out the door. But even in the co-parenting sense with a narcissist, everything that you've mentioned from the start to here now, regardless of the question that's been phrased, we need to be mindful of even in a co-parenting sense.
Yeah.
Because there's still a love bombing that happens. Look, for me personally, because there's not a toxic departure from the union, there's still contact. And so even in the separation and the departing, when I asked my kids, should I ever make up with your dad? They said no.
They're so smart.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like I'm asking them to choose or whatever. I'm saying to them, people change and maybe another chance. And They're like, no, mom, you are such a different version of yourself, because I could become more nurturing. In the toxicity of narcissism, you don't just change for the person, you change your entire identity. I became, because of my circumstances, I was deeply in my masculine. I wasn't even nurturing. So the relationship between my kids was so toxic during the marriage because of my unmet needs from my spouse at the time. So it filtered through to them.
Yes.
I see somebody has given us a comment, which is, Yumna Muhammad. So I don't know if we can read the whole comment.
Thank
Wow.
you, Yumna.
Yes, Jamila, I was married to two narcissistic men, and both times it took me years to heal from it. The worst part is how trauma bonded you become and how hard it is to break free from that. For me, the worst part is that these men make you feel so unworthy as a woman, as a wife, as a person, and that I struggle to overcome even today. It was challenging to be brave and walk away, as divorce in my community is looked upon shameful. In the meantime, while you stay, they are breaking you down, and that's all that we can display on the screen. It doesn't allow us to read further, but thank you. Jamila, you want to
Thank
come in?
you, Yumna. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And Elizabeth, I'll let you comment on that, but I just want you to also keep in mind and maybe advise us. Anissa, you have, your children could see that this was not a healthy relationship for you, and they could see your strength when you are out of it. What I'd like to ask you, Elizabeth, is that how do you support your kids when they have that aggression? They have that anger, and they cannot see what a healthy relationship could be like. And as a result of watching you and experiencing the things that you went through, how do you then advise and assist your children to understand that it is possible to have healthy relationships and to make sure that they don't live in that aggression and become narcissists then in the relationships that they are getting into as a means of protection, I would say.
Yeah, that's big. That's a big question. What I do with my son is I talk to him about my healing path, about my healing journey with his father, the things that I have looked at, the things that I have understood, the things that I can see now that I didn't see back then. I share with him my healing journey and how I feel after I was able to forgive and after I was able to put things in the right perspective. He's not there yet as far as being able to forgive. He's not there yet as far as being able to let go. But I will tell you that even though I did not come in between him and his father, I hope that he would be a better father than he was husband. He wasn't. But children are remarkably intelligent. And my son adored his father for a long, long time. But his father showed who he was to him, and my son saw it. And at a very young age, he decided to break all ties with his father. It was a very painful decision for him to do. It was a very brave decision for him to do. It was his decision alone. And I respect that. That is, he has the right to decide who he wants to have a relationship with and who he doesn't. But that anger, that anger is definitely something that I see in my son. And I can only model for him what it feels like to release that, what it, what it, and hope that one day he can decide to release it himself.
Jeez. Wow, Anissa, that now resonates with me because I've had that exact same um, experience with my son. He also does not have any contact with his dad. He hasn't had contact with his dad, right? Like growing up. And eventually, 10 years after our divorce, he did have contact with him. And it was also his decision to cut all ties.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It's really sad because, divorce doesn't mean that kids should be divorced from either one of their parents. But I think each parent has the responsibility to the children, to be there for them, to be the best role models for them. And unfortunately, when the narcissistic behavior is displayed over and over again, it makes it difficult for those kids to want to continue to have contact. So I do resonate with you. I relate with you.
Very
I'm sad every day, for my son, for
much.
everything that he's missed out on. And, that in itself attaches a lot of guilt on me
Yeah.
because you feel like it's a decision that you made in your life, which is now impacted on an innocent child. But I think through open communication with my son, with being very real and honest about what the relationship was like, that helped a lot. For many years, I didn't have that open communication. I always represented his dad to be more than what he was, to be better than what he was. And for many years, I think my son then took that as the fault being placed on me for not giving him a stable two-parent household. And it's so important for you to be honest with your children. And of course, at different stages in their life, to give them more information, which they can then handle. But honesty and just real, raw truths about what you've experienced always helps in the relationship that you have with your children and the way that they see you.
I agree
Uh,
100%. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I wanted to bring in the aspects of the adverse of the child doesn't necessarily break away, but the mother keeps on pushing that they must have the relationship with the father. And it can also do damage because of that very guilt that we feel, having been the one to do the uncoupling or leave that relationship, you almost want to push an agenda of see your father for the good sides. It didn't work out with me and him, but
You want to
this,
overcompensate.
you want to overcompensate. And so what also happens is, and I'm going to share very openly here, where my daughter will say, but why should I try if he's not doing the part he's supposed to as the parent? Because they do see, Elizabeth, as you say, they start to observe and see patterns when that relationship is dissolved, and they're now starting to see, okay, so my mother was the insane, crazy one during the marriage, or so it appeared to be, because I was the one that was screaming, angry. I looked like the crazy one when he was the bee's knees. He was the calm one,
Yeah.
doing all the nice stuff with the kids. And when I would reprimand or have an issue on certain things, the kids would look at me with such disgust, like, what's wrong with you, mom? You know, dad's really cool and he spends time with us and he spoils us. And even in the co parenting afterwards, that dynamic is still there, where they're spending the weekend. So you have the weekend dad situation. And in the home front, there's all these rules and there's chores and there's structure. Whereas with the narcissist in a co-parenting context, it's all the rules are out of the door and no structure. Let's just have fun. So I just want us to bring to the audience, Elizabeth, how do we navigate the dynamic where there isn't a separation from the father? The kids do yearn to be in the father's life, but they're also starting to get aware and they're becoming more discerning, especially the older ones. My 10-year-old, he doesn't yet see or fully understand. But how do we get our kids to navigate this without them harboring the very thing that took you 30 years, Elizabeth, to heal from, the judgments, the labeling, because we don't want our kids to do that. It's going to carry into their relationships and not just their romantic relationships. So what are your views? I know we've only got a few minutes left. How do we navigate that?
Yeah, it's so hard to navigate that. It's so tricky. I had the thoughts at the time that if I say anything against the dad while we were divorcing, that it would automatically, I would become the bad guy. So I basically just didn't say anything about his dad. It was like, okay, it's time to go to the dad's house and let's pack, let's get all your bag together, whatever. I really did stay out of it because there was so much going on that I couldn't see. I had no control of. I didn't know what the conversations were. I could see the results of it because I could sense my son was different when he would come back to me after being away. But we just got back into our rhythm, when he was with me. And it's hard on the children because the rules here are different than the rules there. And, narcissists love to turn the children against the parent. And so you don't know what they're saying. But if I did all the things that he was doing, then I would just look like the bad guy. And so I just tried to do the best I could and stay out of it and let my son have a relationship with his father. And eventually, as I shared, he made the difficult decision to leave and cut all ties himself. But if I had tried to tell him, this is how your dad really is, and tell him the truth, my truth, it would have just backfired on me. And so it's a hard thing when you love someone and you see them going through this, whether it's a friend or a child, you can see. But sometimes the most loving thing you can do is just to be there and let them have the experiences that they are meant to go through. Because at the end of the day, I can't control it.
Elizabeth, I know we're out of time, but I have one more question for you. Having worked in corporate for so long, right? There were some narcissistic elements in the workplace, but we're oblivious to that. How does one recognize that? How does it play out in the workplace? Is it the silos? Is it the cliques? How do you guide our audience that are listening here today that stay in toxic work environments too, because that need to be validated, or the need for success or accolades or achievement is so high on their radar, they will stay in the toxicity.
Yes. Well, for me, I was absolutely in a toxic workplace, and it didn't start out that way, but I was seeing a pattern of they weren't caring about the employees the way that they used to. The workload was increasing unbelievably. And when we brought this to their attention, we would just hear, we're doing more with less. So you need to do more with less. They're getting rid of people. They're changing how they're the corporate model of how they're dealing with things. And we were being treated as robots. We were connected to work during the day, at night, on the weekends. You were never off. Everybody was always connected to work. There was no downtime. And this was expected, and this was part of the corporate culture, and everybody else was on when I got on. So it's like, I guess this is what we have to do. And I would play into that. But I urge anybody who feels like they're being treated like a robot and not respected for what you do, and that you have absolutely no balance in your life, that you're not spending time with your family because you're expected to be working all of the time. Obviously, there is something wrong here, and a good and healthy corporate culture does not expect you to give everything, including your health, including your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, and to take away things like spending time with your family. That is just not something that is correct. And if you're in that situation, please see all of these as signs that wherever you are in the workplace, it is toxic and it's not okay. It's not sustainable, and it will catch up to you.
We're going to need a part 2, Jamila. We're going to need because how do you deal with toxic friendships? We can kind of
There's so much we haven't touched on, Anissa, and I think on our next one, Elizabeth, if you would join us, and if we have time, a time slot, Anissa, we should invite a few of our friends on who we know have gone through this and experienced this, because and this again, male and female. And just have this open conversation, have them share their stories, because it's so important, to realize that you're not the only one going through this, or to raise awareness about narcissism and our responsibility to not normalize narcissism.
Yes.
And I think the one thing that's going to stay with me are your words, Elizabeth. Choose yourself many times over. I love that. I feel it's so powerful. And to just make sure that you choose yourself without guilt, with bravery, with confidence, and with the responsibility that you have for yourself.
Yes, without a doubt. Beautifully
said. Elizabeth, we're going to have to get you to go back on the Calendly link, because I don't think there are many remaining sessions. There may be one, maybe two. I do think this warrants a absolute another session. Jamila, we need to get Yumna on.
I think we need to get Yumna on. There's also Neda on, who would have loved to have been on, but due to work commitments was unable to. Neda's been on before, but I think she has a wealth of experience and knowledge about this that she would, I'm sure, gladly share with us. And I have a few male friends who I know would be keen to come on and share their experiences and the tools that they've used to help them. So definitely, I think, there's call for part 2 of this episode.
And then, Elizabeth, I'd like to extend the same invitation to you. We can be up to 10 people in the studio. So now that you are a coach and having lived experience, and all those naysayers that are saying, what the heck are you doing, lady? Maybe you could invite people that you have helped through this journey or are in the transitional phase. It's very difficult if they're in the transitional phase, because they might not want to share as openly and vulnerably. But most certainly, if you have anyone that you want to extend the invitation to, bring them on.
Thank you so much.
So do stay with us. Thank you for everyone that's been here on Instagram. We haven't acknowledged you publicly, but I have been typing away in between the session. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the LinkedIn. Those that are going to watch this replay, please let us know if you want to be in the studio with us. Elizabeth, it's going to be up to you to go and select that link. Yeah. Thank you for a very raw, real, vulnerable session, for bringing your calmness and your peace that you say is what you want. I
Thank
feel
you.
that.
Thank you so
So
much. It's been a pleasure.
yeah, do let us know what your parting message is for our audience.
Well, just that the more you know yourself, it really is pivotal. It's foundational to everything in your life. The more you know yourself, the less vulnerable you are to being manipulated by anyone, not just a narcissist, but anyone. You
Mm,
have to spend that time to get to know you, to know, as I said before, what your needs are, what your standards are. We all have to have standards and be willing to protect them fiercely. Have your boundaries. Everything starts with you knowing you, because if you know yourself, you won't fall for anything.
mm, thank you. Do stay on. We end the live, but we normally do a short debrief afterwards. So I'm going to end the live, Jamila. Thank you again. And we will end now and we will see you again next week. And I don't know when we're going to see Elizabeth and everyone in studio, but we look forward to that.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Stay with us, Elizabeth.